Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fight Bet Analytics. We will be reviewing the UFC Fight Night Font versus Aldo that takes place this Saturday at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. So let's get right into it. We're going to be talking about um, the predictions, the bets, where we see value, prop bets, straight bets, uh, all types of interesting information that will help us make better bets and learn more about the fights. So let's get into it. First off, we got Louis Smolka versus Vince Morales. So, Louis Smolka, been around for a while. He's a veteran of the game, trading wins and losses. Vince Morales kind of gone under the radar. He uh, he he lost a couple in a row, but to good competition. He got stopped by leg kicks. Smolka finishes most of his fights on the ground. However, he usually doesn't do too well in the striking. And here I'm going to be picking Vince Morales because a lot of people don't know that Vince Morales is actually a state wrestler and he has a lot of wrestling credentials. And I really do believe that he has the better boxing. And I believe that he'll be able to piece up Smolka on the feet, stop the takedowns, and win a decision. And I think he should be around a slight favorite, minus 140, minus 150 favorite. So at plus 135, I like that bet. I think there's some value there. Moving on to the next fight, we've got Claudio Puelles versus Chris Gritzmacher. So first off, I actually, upon looking at this at first, I thought, Chris Gritzmacher was the side. I thought he was better. And then I dug into this a little bit deeper. I looked at the statistics, and Chris Gritzmacher has actually lost most of his fights on the ground. He's been submitted several times. He's been taken down, controlled. But here's what really stood out to me here was that Claudio Puelles, 10 years younger, he has a 4-inch reach advantage, and he started training at Sanford MMA. So I got to go with the younger guy, the more improving guy, training at a better gym. I think that he should be the favorite, and he's actually sitting about minus 120 now. So I think there's some value there. I like that bet. Moving on to the next fight, we got Alonzo Menafield versus William Knight. Be a fun fight here. Two muscle monsters. Both these guys are just jacked. Both very strong, lots of power. Both guys can fade a little bit as the fight goes on. Both of them have a little bit of cardio problems, but more so Alonzo Menafield. He has slowed down a lot and lost fights due to his cardio. William Knight, on the other hand, a lot of times he just needs to land that one bomb, and the same with Menafield. They're very similar in some senses. Honestly, I think this is a really close fight. It's one of those fights where it could just be a sloppy, slow fight where it goes to decision, or either one could land a bomb. So I do think Menafield should be the slight favorite, but I do think this is near a coin flip fight. So I'm going to stay away from this fight personally, but if you were to place a bet, I would lean more towards Knight, but not my favorite bet. Next fight up, we got Mallory Martin versus Cheyenne Vlismas. So Cheyenne, had a rough start in the UFC. She came in hyped off of Dana White Contender Series, and then she lost that decision to Montserrat Ruiz, where she kept getting put in the scarfold. And Mallory Martin, on the other hand, she won. She came back in a fight where she got dropped against Hannah Cyphers, but then got submitted against Polyana Viana. Now, this is a really interesting fight to me because personally I think that Vlismas is the better fighter, but it doesn't. Sometimes you find out extra information that makes you change your opinion, and I found out that Vlismas had COVID less than a week ago, and she had lung damage, and she said it was hard for her to train, and she is not coming 100% to this fight. And I do think that it was already a close fight before. So with that, I'm going to have to go with Martin due to those issues. This type of information can be valuable, and I believe that if I had to pick, I'm going to pick Martin now because Martin is a wrestler, and I think that Vlismas will wear out because of this, and she'll have a harder time defending the takedowns. So I do definitely like Mallory Martin at plus 155. Next up, we got Jake Matthews versus Jeremiah Wells. Oh, I'm sorry. This one was actually just canceled. So we're going to move on to the next fight. Brian Barabarena versus Darian Weeks. This is a short notice fight. Brian Barabarena was supposed to face Matt Brown. He's fighting a newcomer, Darian Weeks. And Brian Barabarena, he's a veteran of the game. He's fought some good competition. Did pretty well against Leon Edwards, Vicente Luque, but he's been on a decline. Over the last few fights, he was a big favorite against Jason Witt, and he lost that one in a close decision. He was actually dropped 2 times there against the wrestler and Jason Witt. Darian Weeks, he's a young up and comer, fighting out of Missouri. I've seen a little bit of this guy. He's pretty impressive, but I think that on a short notice against a veteran like Barabarena, he's going to be motivated. He knows this is his last chance. I think he's got a little bit better fight IQ, and I think he's going to use that fight IQ, and I think he should be around a minus 170 favorite. So at minus 135, I like that bet on Barabarena. Moving on to the next fight, we got Zhalgas Zhumagulov versus Manel Kape. So, Manel Kape coming in as a hype prospect to the UFC, dropped his first 2 fights, then came back with that flying knee knockout. Zhalgas, he's had some, wins and losses. He had I believe he had a draw with one of the, was it Tagir Ulanbekov? Let's see here. Oh no, he had a win over Tagir Ulanbekov, which is a pretty impressive win. So I do think that Manel Kape should win this fight, strictly due to the fact that he trains at AKA and has a really good wrestling defense, and that's Zhalgas' main path to victory. So I think that Manel Kape should probably be around minus 225, and now he's all the way up to minus 300. So I don't really like him at that price, and he had a bad weight cut. So I would suggest staying away from this fight in general. Moving on to the next fight, one of my favorite bets on the card, Maki Pitolo versus Dusko Tudorovic. Personally, I don't see why Maki Pitolo was the underdog here. He's been improving every fight. Yes, he's come up short a few times, but in his last fight, he went against the guy who was really good at Julian Marquez, dominated him in the grappling, and Maki Pitolo is mainly known as a striker, and dominated him in the last couple minutes. He got caught in a fluky submission by Julian Marquez. I get that Dusko is maybe looks, the records can be deceiving, but really I looked at, if you look at Dusko's competition, he hasn't fought anyone really great. Even against Daquan Townsend, he was getting lit up with some shots. Daquan Townsend hit him with, he hit him with a lot of punches before he was finally able to get him down and TKO him. I think that Maki has the better boxing. He has faster punches. I think he has a better fight IQ, and I wouldn't say better fight IQ. I take that back, but I think he has more tools to win, and I think he could use his wrestling here. So one of my favorite bets on the card is Maki Pitolo at plus 145. Moving on to the next fight, going to the main card now, we got Alex Morono versus Mickey Gall. So I do believe that Alex Morono probably wins here, but I do think it's really close, and that does warrant a bet for me on Mickey Gall, because I do think there is some value at Mickey Gall at plus 200. I honestly think this could be a lot closer to like minus 130 for Morono, or minus 140, maybe minus 145. And here's the thing: you look back in Morono's fights, he was taken down 4 times against Max Griffin. He was taken down about 4 or 5 times against Jordan Main. He's been controlled before. He's lost decisions. He doesn't have good takedown defense, and you could see someone like Mickey Gall, who is rapidly improving. That's the type of guy I'm looking to back. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage, 3-inch height advantage. So I would suggest putting a small bet on Mickey Gall just for the value overall. Next fight on the main card, we got Brendan Allen versus Chris Curtis. So Chris Curtis, coming in as big underdog in his last fight, he was getting dominated by Phil Hawes, and then he did land 1 punch, and he then went on to TKO Phil Hawes, but it was more of a fluke. He was getting dominated and he did land that one punch. I think if that fight happened 9 out of 10 times, he would lose that fight. Brendan Allen, on the other hand, um, he's been looking really good recently. He beat Puna Soriano, who's a really hard puncher. And I think if he can take Puna Soriano's punches, he can take Chris Curtis's punches. We've seen Chris Curtis be controlled on the floor by multiple fighters. I think Brendan Allen could do that. I think Brendan Allen can outstrike him like Phil Hawes did. I mean, Brendan Allen outstruck Kyle Dawkins, who Phil Hawes barely outstruck. And so Brendan Allen is a big favorite, and for good reason. Um, I think that price is about right. I do think it could even be a little bit higher. So I think there's slight value on Brendan Allen, but I would suggest if you're gonna play him, just play him straight. I wouldn't parlay him. Next fight we got Clay Guida versus Leonardo Santos, two veterans of the game. Leonardo Santos is 41 years old, and Clay Guida 39 years old. Um, so both been around for a long time. Leonardo Santos was on some streak before. He hadn't lost in he had a really he hadn't lost like I think almost 10 in a row or something. He lost to Grant Dawson by a buzzer beater knockout. Clay Guida coming off a controversial loss to Mark Madsen, who's a Olympic wrestler. Had an impressive win against Michael Johnson. Clay Guida has been looking really good recently, and I think that he's going to put it on Leonardo Santos. The thing about Leonardo Santos is he's been backing up recently, and he just doesn't have that same athleticism as he had when he was younger. And I think he's slowing down, even though Clay Guida is getting up there in age too. I think his body is holding up better, and I think Clay Guida was talking about in the interviews that he's going to pressure him, and just nonstop forward pressure, and I believe that's exactly what we need to beat Santos. And Clay Guida, one thing is that he always has good cardio. He's not fading, and Santos has been fading a lot in later rounds. So I think that Guida could be a small favorite in this fight. So I really like Guida plus 170, and I also like Guida by decision plus 275. Moving on to the next fight, we got a good fight, Jimmy Crute versus Jamahal Hill. So we got both these guys coming off losses, disappointing losses, and both the fights they were big favorites in. Jamahal Hill got submitted. Well, he actually went down as a TKO. He got his arm broken by Paul Craig, and then they called it a TKO. Jimmy Crute had a leg injury against Anthony Smith, but it was from leg kicks. But one thing that people forget was that Jimmy Crute was kind of getting busted up by Anthony Smith for the first, like 5 minutes of the fight. He was getting jabbed, 1-2s, leg kicks. Anthony Smith was doing pretty well against him, and Jamahal Hill has a long, lanky body like Anthony Smith, and I think most people would agree that he's a better striker than Anthony Smith. So I do believe that Jimmy Crute, if he gets it to the ground, he should win this one. But I think Jamahal Hill has a good shot to keep us on the feet and outstrike Jimmy Crute to either a decision or TKO. And I do think this could be maybe like a minus 110 pick'em. So I like a small to medium sized bet on Jamahal Hill at plus 150. Moving on to the co-main event, Rafael Fiziev versus Brad Ridell. So I know a lot of people have strong opinions on this fight. Personally, I think this is a 50-50 fight. I think if they fought 10 times, maybe they would each win 5 times. Both these guys have trained together at Tiger Muay Thai, and they were former training partners actually. So it's an interesting fight here, but I do think that they're both very skilled, and I don't think that it would be a good idea to bet on either guy, because I don't think there's value if it should be 50-50. If you're betting on a guy at pick'em odds, that's 50-50. You're giving 10 cents of value to the bookies there. So I am gonna pick Rafael Fiziev, but I think maybe he would win 52% of the time or 51% of the time. So I don't really think there's a lot of value there. However, The play I do like here is minus 185 goes to decision. Both these guys, um, very durable. Rafael Fiziev has only been finished one time in his loss. It was a fluke kick. Um, I think that this one goes to the cards the vast majority of the time, probably 9 out of 10 times. So at minus 185, I think that's a good deal. That would be my favorite bet on this fight. Actually, not only is that my favorite bet on this fight, but it's also my favorite bet on the card. Moving on to the main event, we got Rob Font versus Jose Aldo. So, main event, bantamweight, Jose Aldo, the veteran, former featherweight champion, former legend. Some people think he was the best featherweight of all time. You got Rob Font, the new up and comer, training out of New England with Calvin Kattar. Both guys on a roll recently. Rob Font on a nice little win streak over Cody Garbrandt. Had a win over Ricky Simon, Marlon Moraes. Jose Aldo fought for the title against Petr Yan. No shame in losing that one. Came back, won against Marlon Vera, and he won against Pedro Munoz. So he's been looking good recently too. So originally, I thought, looking into this, that Rob Font should win this one. But upon further review, upon looking upon the statistics, I think that this is going to be a stand-up fight, and over 5 rounds. I think that Rob Font is a better boxer, but I got to go with the guy who I think has more tools. I think Jose Aldo has more tools to win. I think he could mix in the leg kicks. I think he's got better body shots. He goes to the body a lot more than Rob Font, who is primarily a headhunter. And I think if Jose Aldo mixes in those leg kicks and body shots, that will be the difference. I also believe that Jose Aldo could take him down to the floor and out wrestle him like Cody Garbrandt did. We saw Cody Garbrandt do that for the first 2 rounds, but he gassed out. I think Jose Aldo could do that, and I'm gonna take Jose Aldo here. I like Jose Aldo at plus 125. I think he should be a slight favorite, and I also like Jose Aldo by decision at plus 275. Both these guys are pretty durable. I see this one going to decision, but I got Aldo by decision. So that's it for the card.